Shopping for piping tips can be a pain. Depending on where you live, it can be difficult to find stores that sell piping tips. And even when you do, these stores are often out of stock. So you're forced to shop online and get bombarded with a gazillion search results. And if you've ever tried to choose a piping tip based solely on a blurry picture, a barely there description, or a bunch of vague details that don't really mean anything to a beginner, you know how frustrating it can be. So for this video, I did a bit of shopping for you. We're going to look at 4 large piping tips and their matching mini versions. I'll talk about the type, brand, and size of each tip, and I'll even show you how to use them. I'm Susan, and you're watching Weekend Cupcakes. For this tutorial, I have 4 sets of piping tips that we'll be reviewing. Each set consists of 1 large tip and 1 mini. Before we talk about those, let's have a look at the frosting we'll be using to demonstrate what each tip can do. I have some buttercream that I colored in 4 different pastel colors for each set of piping tips. We'll start off with this pink that I made with some Wilton pink and rose pink to keep the color on the pastel side. Next we have some peach. I had some leftover orange frosting, so I used a bit of that and I added some Wilton's peach. I really like this next one, our lilac, which I made with a small amount of Wilton's violet. Last but not least, we have some blue. I started by making this with a little bit of Wilton sky blue, but when I mixed it with the buttercream, it turned green. This happened because buttercream has a yellow tinge, and when you add blue to yellow, you get green. So, in order to mute the yellow of the buttercream, I had to add some Wilton's violet. As you can see on this color wheel, violet and yellow are opposite each other. These are known as complementary colors. When mixed together, they cancel each other out. This is why the violet worked so well. All right, so our first piping tip is the Wilton 2D. It's probably the most popular piping tip for rosettes, which is what we'll be making today. It's a large closed star tip with 6 points that are folded in towards the center. I usually put this tip directly in a bag, but it also fits on a large coupler. That being said, I'm not crazy about using large couplers because they extend too far up into the piping bag, and I find that it wastes a lot of buttercream. I could go on and on about the pros and cons of couplers, and which piping tips fit them and which ones don't, but that's for a whole other video. In fact, let me know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in. Coming back to our piping tip, the 2D's opening, which is the top of the tip, has a 13 mm diameter. This measurement is from the bottom of a gap on one side to the bottom of the gap across from it. Yes, we actually measured each piping tip because, in my experience, some websites either don't have the measurements or you can't tell if the measurement is for the top or the bottom of the tip. So the mini version of the 2D is the Ateco 35. It's also a closed star tip with 6 points. The diameter of its opening is 9 mm. This tip fits on a standard size coupler, which I will use today. Here they are side by side. We'll do a rosette on a cupcake with the Wilton 2D and a bunch of small rosettes with the Ateco 35. Okay, so we have our tip directly in the bag, and I'm just smoothing the buttercream by pushing out any air bubbles. It's ready now, so let's fill the bag and turn it up. I like to lie it down and push the air out, and then push the frosting down to the tip. This is the Wilton 2D with the pink frosting. I have a frozen cupcake that I'm crumb coating with that same pink frosting. Make sure the frosting goes all the way to the edge of the liner, then scrape off the excess buttercream. Since the cupcake is frozen, the crumb coat hardens right away. It's a similar effect to when you crumb coat a cake and put it in the fridge to harden. Make sure your bag is nice and tight. Start by holding your bag at a 90-degree angle in the middle of the cupcake. Touch the cupcake, squeeze, and let the frosting connect. Lift the tip up, move to the side, and go around the center. Continue working your way around and out towards the edge of the cupcake. Just take your time and go slow. When you come to the edge, stop squeezing and gently pull away. There we have our Wilton 2D rosette. For the mini 2D, I'm using the Ateco 35. As I mentioned before, this tip fits in a standard coupler. My cupcake already has a bit of a dome, which is great because I want a dome for the mini rosettes. I'm going to crumb coat the cupcake and make the dome bigger with some frosting. I'm using a good amount of frosting and spreading it along the edge of the cupcake liner. Instead of scraping off the excess frosting, I'm holding my spatula at an angle and spinning the cupcake to push the frosting up towards the center. Let's add a bit more frosting to make the dome higher. Again, I'm holding my spatula at an angle and pushing the frosting up towards the middle. In no time flat, you'll have a nice dome to pipe your mini rosettes. We'll be piping several of these around the cupcake. Hold the tip at a 90-degree angle from the dome. Place it slightly above the edge of the liner. Squeeze, let the frosting connect. Lift the tip up, move down and to the side, and go around the center. We're only going to do one loop around the center. When you get back to where you started, taper off and bring the frosting back up onto the rosette a bit. Turn the cupcake. When you start the next rosette, leave enough space so it'll fit in well. Squeeze, let the frosting connect, lift the tip up, move down and to the side, and go around the center. Taper off, bring it up onto itself, stop squeezing, and come off. Just keep doing this all around the cupcake. You should be able to fit about 5 rosettes by the time you circle back to the first one. All right, now, we'll do one rosette on top using the same technique. Start in the center, move to the side, go around the center, taper off, stop squeezing, and gently pull away. There we have our first mini rosettes with the Ateco 35. As you can see, the ridges of the mini rosettes are kind of deep and curved in towards the center. If we look at the large rosette, we can see that they are very similar in that the ridges are also curved in over each other and towards the center. Our second large piping tip is the Wilton 2C. It's also a closed star tip, but it has a lot more points to it. Let me bring in the 2D so we can compare them. Not only are there a lot more points, but the gaps between the points are much thinner. The 2C's diameter is 14.5 millimeters, so slightly wider than the 2D. The mini version of the 2C is the Ateco 31. It's also a closed star tip with many points. The diameter measures 9 millimeters, same as the Ateco 35, and it also fits on a coupler. For the Wilton 2C, I filled the bag with the peach frosting, and the cupcake will be crumb-coated using the same peach frosting. Once again, place the tip in the center of the cupcake at a 90-degree angle. Squeeze and let the frosting connect. Lift the tip up, move to the side, and go around the center. Keeping the same amount of pressure on your bag, work your way around the cupcake until it's entirely covered. Stop squeezing and pull away. And there's the Wilton 2C rosette. If we look at the 2C and 2D side by side, you can see that there are a lot more ridges on the 2C and they're closer together. I think I like the 2C rosette better than the 2D. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. I've crumb-coated my frozen cupcake and built a dome for the Ateco 31 mini rosettes. So we'll pipe these rosettes the exact same way as the Ateco 35. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to hit that like button. Also, make sure to subscribe to the channel and have your notifications turned on so you don't miss anything. If you keep your circles tight, you should be able to fit 6 rosettes around the cupcake. For the last rosette, just finish it against the first one. We'll finish it off with a rosette on top. Start in the center, move to the side, go around your starting point, stop squeezing, and come off. It's okay if the top rosette is piped slightly over the other rosettes. So just like the 2C, the Ateco 31 mini rosettes have many ridges, and they are turned in towards the center. By comparison, they really are a mini version of the 2C rosette. Now, when you compare the Ateco 31 and the Ateco 35 rosettes, you get a very different look. What strikes me is that the rosettes appear to be about the same size, but I was able to pipe 6 rosettes around the cupcake with the Ateco 31 and only 5 with the Ateco 35. Just like I prefer the 2C rosette over the 2D, I also prefer the Ateco 31 rosettes. It kind of makes me wonder why the 2D is so popular. Speaking of popular tips, our next candidate is arguably the most popular piping tip of all time, the Wilton 1M. It's an open star tip with 6 points and an opening diameter of 13 millimeters. The mini version for the 1M is the Ateco 17. It's also an open star tip with 6 points and a diameter of 6 millimeters. It's the smallest piping tip we'll be using today. So for the 1M tip, I filled the bag and crumb-coated my cupcake with the lilac frosting. The rosette is made exactly the same way as the others. Place the tip in the center of the cupcake at a 90-degree angle and squeeze to make the frosting connect. Lift the tip up, move to the side, and go around the center. Try maintaining a steady pressure on the bag and keep the same pace all around. Stop squeezing and pull away. There you have the Wilton 1M rosette. The 1M and the 2D produce such similar results that many people feel they are interchangeable. Really, the only difference is that the ridges on the 1M are straighter and stand up more, whereas the ridges on the 2D are more curved. Now let's make the mini rosettes with the Ateco 17. Like the other 2 mini rosettes, we'll start by placing our tip slightly above the edge of the cupcake. Squeeze, let the frosting connect, lift up, move down and to the side, and go around the center. The difference here is we'll be going around the center twice since the piping tip is so small. When you get back to where you started, taper off and bring the frosting back up onto the rosette a bit. Let's move over and start a second rosette. Just keep going around, leaving enough space between the rosettes to fit the next one. You should be able to fit 6 rosettes around the cupcake. We have enough room on top to fit one last rosette. Place your tip in the center, then squeeze. Let the frosting connect, move to the side, and go around the center twice. Stop squeezing and come off. As you can see, the ridges on both the mini and the large rosette are straight and stand up. We compared the 1M and the 2D, so let's compare the Ateco 17 and the 35. Aside from the fact that it's a much smaller tip, the grooves in the Ateco 17 are not that deep. The grooves in the Ateco 35 are a lot deeper, which makes the ridges higher, and of course, they also curve inward. I think you end up with a much more delicate-looking mini rosette with the Ateco 35. What do you think? Our last large piping tip is the absolutely ginormous Wilton 6B. It's also an open star tip, but with many points. These types of piping tips are also known as French tips. The opening has a diameter of 16 millimeters. Its mini version is the Wilton 32, an open star tip that also has many points. Its opening has a diameter of 9 millimeters. Our 6B tip is in a large disposable bag with the blue frosting. With these huge piping tips, you really need a large bag to accommodate them. Place the tip in the center of the cupcake at a 90-degree angle, squeeze, and because this tip is so big, let the frosting balloon out a bit. Lift the tip up, move to the side, and go around the center just once. There's the 6B swirl. I'm calling it a swirl because it really doesn't look much like a rosette. A little side note about this cupcake. After we filmed this video and the cupcakes were all, well, eaten, I realized I could have done a much better job with this piping tip. So stay tuned until the end of this video and I'll show you a better way to pipe a swirl with these super large tips. But anyway, let's focus on this one for now. As you can see, there are tons of ridges on the 6B swirl. It's similar to the 2C, except the ridges are standing upright instead of being folded over. If we compare this with the other open star tip, the 1M, they actually look quite different. The 6B cannot be mistaken for a flower, whereas the 1M is a classic rosette. Now, the mini 6B is the Wilton 32. I have the tip in a coupler, and I filled the bag with the blue frosting. So we'll pipe these just like the Ateco 31 and 35 rosettes. We'll go around the center only once, as this tip has the same diameter as those other two tips. When you get back to where you started, taper off and try to tuck the end underneath the rosette. Try to keep your swirl close to the center so the rosettes aren't too big. Just keep going around, leaving enough space between the rosettes to fit the next one. You should be able to fit 6 or even 7 rosettes around the cupcake. I seem to have a bit more space on top of the cupcake, so I'll pipe 3 small rosettes instead of just 1 like the others. Keep your tip close to the center so you get the smallest possible rosette. Repeat this 2 more times, and next thing you know, you have 3 little rosettes on top. The rosettes are certainly a lot thicker than the Ateco 17 rosettes. Of course, there are a lot more ridges on the 32 than the 17. Just like the 6B, the 32 doesn't give our frosting a flower look. In fact, they are very similar. Lots of straight ridges and very thick swirls. Now that we have our rosettes, we'll be adding some leaves, so let's compare the different sizes of leaf tips. I have here the Color Mill 353 large leaf tip, which is the same as the better-known Wilton 366. Both tips will give you the same result. The opening from point to point is 10 millimeters, and the opening from the bottom of the V's is 6 millimeters. Now, the very popular mini version of these is the Wilton 352. The opening from the points is 5 millimeters, and the opening from the V's is 4 millimeters. But wait! The 352 tip has its own mini version. Enter the Ateco 349. The measurements on this one are 4 millimeters from point to point, and just over 3 millimeters between the V's. As you can see, they're all identical, just different sizes. So for the large rosettes, I'll be using the Color Mill 353. I filled half the bag with some dark green and the other half with some light green. We'll use the leaves to hide the ends of the rosettes. Make sure to hold your tip with the points on the top and bottom. Place your tip where the rosette ends. Squeeze, let the frosting balloon out, then slowly pull away while you're still squeezing. When you get the size you want, stop squeezing and pull away. Let's do a second leaf. Now the rosette looks finished. Let's do the same for the peach and the lilac cupcakes. There we go. Now for a swirl like this, normally I wouldn't add any leaves because it really doesn't look like a flower. But since all the other cupcakes have leaves, I'm going to try something. I'll add some leaves, but they won't be in the same direction as the others. I'm actually going to put them up and over the swirl. There's a bit of space on the edge of the cupcake, so I'm placing my tip vertically on the edge, and instead of piping outward, I'm going to pipe up and over like that. Let's do a second one. Place your tip on the edge, let the frosting balloon out a bit, pull up while squeezing, then stop squeezing and pull away. For the mini rosettes, we'll be using the Super Mini Ateco 349. Just like the large leaves, I've filled my bag with dark and light green buttercream. Again, make sure the points are on the top and bottom when you're piping. We'll pipe a leaf on the edge of the cupcake between each rosette. Place your tip between 2 rosettes, squeeze, let the frosting balloon out and slowly move away while continuing to squeeze. Then stop squeezing and pull away. The leaves need to be very small, so don't let the frosting balloon out too much, and don't pull back too far. We'll add some leaves around the center rosette. Hold your tip at a 45-degree angle when piping these leaves. We're basically using the leaves to hide the gaps between the rosettes. There we go! Let's add some leaves on the other mini rosettes. Actually, I think this one looks good without adding leaves in the middle, so we'll just have leaves around the outer edge. For the Ateco 17, the gaps on the edges of the cupcake are not that big, but you can still fit some small leaves between each rosette. On the other hand, the gaps around the center rosette are quite big, so definitely add leaves to that one. Now, for this one, I wouldn't normally add leaves since the swirls don't really look like flowers. However, Max thinks the cupcake looks like a brain, so I am gonna add a whole bunch of leaves to it. I want to put a leaf between each swirl even though the gaps are really tiny around the edge of the cupcake. For the center, it's gonna look kind of random because I'm filling in all the gaps. Okay. As promised, I'm going to show you a better way to do a 6B swirl. But first, let's look at the difference between the sizes of our large tips. The 6B is a much larger tip compared to the other three. For instance, even though the 1M and 6B are the same height, the opening of the 1M is only 13 millimeters, whereas the opening of the 6B is 16 millimeters. That's a big difference. The technique that I used for the other three tips required a large movement, so I was moving my whole arm when piping the swirl. I went around the center twice with those other tips because they're smaller. I couldn't do that with the 6B because the opening is just too darn big. With such a large tip, you need to start with a smaller movement. So instead of using my whole arm to move to the side, I should have just moved my wrist. Then once I got around the center, I could start moving my arm. Let's make that swirl using the 6B and some uncolored frosting. Start in the middle of the cupcake at a 90-degree angle. Squeeze, let the frosting balloon out, and then, using your wrist, move to the side and go around the center. Once you've gone around the center, move with your arm to continue all the way around until you meet the edge of your cupcake. Stop squeezing and pull away. As you can see, this is a very different look from the first 6B swirl. It's circular and more compact. It still doesn't really look like a rosette, but it's much closer than the first one. So there you have it, folks. Whether you're brand new to cake decorating or just looking for new ideas, I hope this video got you excited to try these piping tips while avoiding the shopping struggles that I faced. Start with some rosettes, and when you're ready for something a bit more challenging, check out this next video for more fantastic cupcake ideas. Thanks for watching, and happy baking!